Coming up on College Press Box, Texas football gives fans a preview into fall.
Baseball steps up to the mound with a series win against Kansas.
And men's and women's tennis stay strong into the season.
All this and more coming up next on College Press Box.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of College Press Box. I'm Jessica Robinson, and with me tonight is Emily Stone. Emily, how are you doing this evening?
Jessica, I have never been better. There's only a few weeks left of school, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and we had a brief glimpse of football over the weekend.
Well, let's jump right into it. Texas football competed in their spring game scrimmage this past Saturday at DKR. Emily, how did you feel about that funky weather?
Well, as the rain ended the game early, I was not the biggest fan. I was so sad to see the game come to such a quick end because I am so ready for football to start. So the rain kind of put a damper on my mood, but it did make me more excited to see Texas play this fall.
Well, let's give you guys a preview with some highlights from the spring game. Let's head to DKR. Texas is still searching for its starting quarterback. This game was a showcase of Texas's options, specifically against seniors Tyrone Swoops and freshman Shane Buechele. Deontay Foreman opens the game with a 28-yard run. There he goes. Buechele completes one of his first passes to Armonte Foreman, and he would connect with him many more times later on in this game. Buechele connects with Armonte yet again. There he goes on the sideline where Holton Hollywood Hill would be flagged for pass interference. This clearly doesn't sell well with Coach Strong. On a 27-yard pass, Buechele connects with Armonte for the touchdown. This gives Team Texas the lead up 7-0. There we go. Maybe we'll get a little dance. Oh, victory! Chris Warren responds quickly, tying the game with a quick 51-yard rushing touchdown, tying the game 7-7 through the first half. Chris Warren isn't finished just yet as he would set up for a 4-yard run for Deontay, Texas leading 14-7. There he goes again. There's a killer 65-yard pass from Buechele to Burt. That was definitely a highlight of the game. Team Texas beating Team Horns 21-7. Buechele finished with 2 touchdowns, while Swoops had 2 interceptions. College Press Box's very own Reese Miller was at the game to give you a behind-the-scenes look.
Over the past 5 seasons, the Texas spring game has turned into the annual quarterback competition game. This year it was true freshman Shane Buechele that once again provided the Longhorns with hope.
The day he stepped on his campus, he has been a guy that you know he's going to be relaxed, he's going to be patient. Nothing is really going to fluster him.
We've seen that all spring, and he's a guy that goes out there and work hard every day. So, it was expected, really.
He's been diligent about all his work, just the way he's processed it, understands it. He's a guy that's savvy about football, and he understands what we're doing and what we're trying to get accomplished.
It took all of one very rainy half of glorified spring football practice for most Texas fans to decide Shane Buechele should be the starting quarterback in the fall. However, the coaching staff says this is a competition that carries through the summer, and no matter who wins the job, the new high-paced Sterling Gilbert offense will be just fine.
We're going to have us a quarterback that's going to be very effective and going to be able to move this ball up and down the field for us.
Both of those guys have done well, and I think both of those guys have made each other better. There's still growth with all those guys, and we'll just go continue to evaluate and watch.
Where Gerard Hurd, who led Texas with 10 starts last year, stands in the race isn't clear. What is clear is that before the season starts, Strong wants a clear winner. When
we make that decision, it won't be a tie. It'll be a guy who's just clearly stepped out and say, hey, boom, that's the guy. Let's go with him and let's go play.
Texas plays Notre Dame to begin the season September 4th. Reese Miller, College Press Box.
Let's break down the spring game. Throughout the spring practice, the Horns have been searching for a titled starting quarterback. Freshman early enrollee Shane Buechele has fired up the quarterback position, giving competition to Swoops and Loxley with an injured Gerard Hurd and Matthew Merrick. Buechele finished the first and only half of the game throwing for 299 yards and 2 touchdowns on 22 of 41 passing yards. Swoops, on the other hand, has seen better games. Matt, who do you think will come out as starting quarterback for the Horns in September against Notre Dame?
You know, when you look at the quarterback competition, Charlie Strong is saying the right things right now, but if he wants to protect his job, he has to go with Shane Buechele. And you look at the way the game was set up, Shane Buechele, 22 of 41. He took twice as many snaps as Tyrone Swoops. Swoops was only 14 of 16. Those 2 picks really hurt him, and almost having a third one by P.J. Locke. The thing about Shane versus Tyrone, right now Shane is moving the offense with that heavy run game. Tyrone just can't do that. He doesn't have the same arm strength. Unfortunately, we've already seen 3 years of what Swoops can do, and Strong and this coaching staff made sure they showcased Buechele and wanted to show the world that this is their guy going forward.
I'm going to have to agree with Matt. I think that Shane came out and showed that he's ready to step up and take on the season. Kirk Bowles, a sports columnist at the American Statesman, agrees, saying that Texas has a winner in Buechele and that he should be named the starter now.
I'm going to have to agree with you. Buechele really showed up and showed off at the spring game. Definitely think that he will be the starting quarterback come September.
The Texas football team played a muddy game with some players that will be freshmen and sophomores in the fall. We already talked about freshman Shane Buechele. He enrolled this spring to get an early start with the Longhorns, and it is showing on the field. Brecken Hager showed promise in the outside linebacker position. Matt, were there any new faces that stood out to you this past weekend?
There are 3 guys that come to mind for me. Colin Johnson, 6'6" freshman wide receiver, a guy that Texas is wanting to get their eyes on for a while now. Had a shoulder injury his senior year of high school. He didn't get a lot of reps as we hoped, but he still performed at elite level. He showcased he will go up for the ball. He's a big-time receiver, definitely one Texas will want to keep an eye on. DeMarco Boyd, a linebacker, a freshman as well, Chris Boyd's little brother. He came out of high school as an athlete playing both a linebacker and running back. He really did some good things, getting a lot of pressure on Tyrone Swoops in this game. Had a couple of key tackles on the running backs, so that's a good thing. And also moving Roderick Bernard over to running back from wide receiver. He's going into his junior year, hasn't really settled in at wide receiver. He's going to be an extra dimension to both Deontay Foreman and Chris Warren this season.
Those are all great points. I'm going to add a sophomore. I'm going to go with Brecken Hager. He played in 9 games as a true freshman last season, so he's comfortable with being on the field. Recently moved to outside linebacker, his knowledge from middle linebacker helps him have a deeper understanding of the position, getting a better read of the offense. Brecken's presence is definitely a catalyst for the defense, and I would expect to see big things out of him this fall. I would also look to another sophomore, John Burt, with that 65-yard catch from Shane Buechele. I think him and Buechele are going to be a good back-to-back. Let's see about that. So now let's head to defense. Even with Texas's 2 starting safeties, Dylan Haynes and Jason Hall, out for the game, defense was decent. And sophomore Brecken Hager recently moved to the outside linebacker position, claiming 2 sacks in just the 1 half played. It appears that Texas has a good depth and fire to this defense, but the defensive tackle raises some concern. Matt, what do you think about the Horns' defense?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head when you said the defense was decent. They got a lot of plays, got a lot of great plays from that secondary, getting 3 turnovers from Deshaun Elliott, Antoine Davis, and John Boney. But past that, there wasn't really a whole lot to say for the defense. When you have the offense going 110 plays, going over 600 yards, having that kind of firepower is not something you want to see going forward into the Big 12 season. The thing, and you said it best, the defensive tackle is what stood out in this Texas game that's going to be some areas to address. With only 3 scholarship players right now, with Boyette, Punaford, and also Chris Nelson, they don't have a lot of depth. They're going to have to get that in the fall with this freshman group with Jordan Elliott, Chris Daniels, Marcus Southall, a couple of other guys coming in. They're going to have a lot of talent, young talent, coming at the defensive tackle position, and they're going to get a lot of playing time. There's going to be a lot of mistakes up front early on, so we'll see how that group responds once the Notre Dame game comes up.
I'm going to have to agree with Matt. I think that the defense could still be improved, but with the freshmen coming in this fall, the defense will be stronger and ready to take on top offensive teams.
Well, that does it for spring football. Matt, thank you for joining us on the set this evening.
Thank you guys for having me.
Well, we are headed to the mound after this short break. Stay with us. This is College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Thanks for sticking with us. Texas baseball faced the University of Houston Cougars Tuesday in Sugar Land, Texas. After 2 scoreless innings, sophomore starter Connor Mays allowed 3 consecutive singles, including a bunt single up the first baseline, putting the Cougars up 1-0. Then with the bases loaded, following a walk, another single made the score 2-0. The Longhorns began to bounce back in the 5th with Zane Gerwitz coming through with a 1-out double, making the score 2-1. Then in the bottom of the 6th, a squeeze bunt from Trace Barrera allowed Cody Clemens to race home, tying the game 2-2. Houston grabbed the lead in the following inning and held on to win 3-2.
Texas hosted Kansas this past weekend, opening the series with a doubleheader Friday. In the first of 2 games, Casey Clemens, with his first career triple, scored Travis Jones to put the Horns up 1-0. After missing 14 games due to a stress fracture, speedy Joe Baker took the first pitch he saw up the middle for a base hit to lead off the second. The Longhorns were up 3-0 at the top of the 3rd when Kansas bounced back, producing 2 runs. In the 5th, and with 2 outs, Kansas loaded the bases. Jayhawk left fielder Devin Foyle hit a grounder down the left field line to clear the bases and put the Jayhawks up 7-5. Horns' Eric Dunbar on the mound in the 7th allowed a walk and a pair of singles, the earned run being the first allowed by Dunbar in his 5 outings as a Longhorn. Texas could not muster up a comeback and fell to the Jayhawks 11-5.
The Longhorns played their 2nd game of the series on Friday, and let's take a look at the highlights. Loyal Longhorn fans stuck around for Game 2 as in the bottom of the 1st, Trace Barrera doubles, driving in Travis Jones to put the first number up on the scoreboard, making the score 1-0 Texas. Only 2 batters later, Zane Gerwitz hits a home run to the left, allowing Casey Clemens and Trace Barrera to run to home plate, bringing the score up 4-0. Kyle Johnston pitched 5 2/3 innings, only allowing 4 hits and 1 run. Johnston also had 4 strikeouts during his pitching time against Kansas. At the bottom of the 3rd, Travis Jones singles and Patrick Mathis is able to run around 3rd, and then he slides into home plate, making the score 6-0 Texas. At the top of the 9th, Kansas makes a comeback and Michael Tinsley batted in a single, allowing Kansas to catch up and make the score 8-6. The next batter, Chase Sugar, gets Colby Wright to the ground in a 5-4-3 double play, ending the game against the Jayhawks 8-6 with Texas winning. James Graycoast was at the Diamond. Let's take a look at his coverage.
Friday brought us a perfect day for baseball at the Dish as the Longhorns took on the Kansas Jayhawks in a doubleheader. Kansas cruised early to an 11-5 win, but Casey Johnston had something to say about that as he took the mound in Game 2. Johnston pitched well for 6 innings, only giving up 4 hits. But the story of the series ended up being the Longhorn bats, which actually came alive in the locker room.
Did you pronounce my name wrong?
What they did to score the first 7 runs in the first 4 innings was as a result of what they challenged themselves with in the locker room. So I was really proud of that.
Texas would go on to win 8-6 with massive contributions from Trace Barrera and Zane Gerwitz. The juniors both had 3 RBIs and a homer to lead the Longhorn bounce back.
After Game 1 of Friday's doubleheader, the Longhorns fell 6 games below 500 for the first time since Augie Garrido's 2nd season as manager. But even after a frightening 4-run 9th inning for Kansas that brought the game within 2 runs, the Longhorns still believe that they have what it takes to salvage this season, but it's going to be on the back of these young guns.
We have so much young talent on this team, it's unbelievable. That's why it's so frustrating at times why we lose ball games. We have so much talent in that locker room, a lot of young guys, and I hope they're learning from this type of what we're going through, and I know that down the road they're going to be great players.
Friday's doubleheader ended on a double play, and that momentum carried over to Saturday, where the bats continued to tear up the Jayhawks in a 12-2 win. Texas hopes this trend continues as they take on UT Rio Grande Valley tomorrow at home. James Grachos, College Press Box.
The Horns closed the series against Kansas Saturday by taking advantages of some early KU mistakes and got out to an insurmountable lead. Travis Jones led the bottom half of the first with a walk, Trace Barrera following in his footsteps. Casey Clemens singled out, putting the Horns up 1-0. The Horns left the first inning with a 3-0 lead. Later in the third, Texas had a 4-run inning, putting the game out of reach. Casey Clemens opened with a double, and Patrick Mathis followed with a walk. A Tyler Rand single and Travis Jones bunt gave the Horns a 7-1 lead. Senior pitching starter Ty Colbreth made big moves for the Horns, limiting the Jayhawks to only 2 runs over 6 innings on the mound. He finished with 7 innings of work, allowing only 8 hits, 2 runs, and 8 strikeouts. Texas run ruled the Jayhawks, winning 12-2, giving Texas their 3rd conference series win.
Before we take a break, Jessica, let's talk baseball and what they did right this past weekend. The Longhorns came away with a series win, and what did this team do in this series that led to a Longhorn victory?
So a lot of things went right for the Horns. Them capitalizing on Kansas's errors early in the first innings of the game were definitely key, especially taking advantage of the walks, putting Travis and Trace on bases, with Casey and Zane knowing what to do and then bringing them home. Ty Colbreth, definitely a solid pitcher, playing the entirety of the game. He was on for the Horns, and the pitching was everything that the Horns needed it to be, if not more. They were great. The Horns see a tough schedule ahead, facing the Big 12 frontrunner Texas Tech this weekend in Lubbock. Following that, the Horns face Oklahoma State, who is currently tied with Texas at 7-5. Emily, what are your predictions for the next coming weeks for Texas baseball?
I think that anything could happen in those face-offs. We've seen Texas win against teams like TCU and lose to teams lower ranked. They have to want to win. If they want it, I can see them taking home the victories against Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. But it will just come down to how they're playing in the diamond on those days.
Definitely, day by day. We'll see how it goes.
Coming up, we talk softball, tennis, and more. Don't go anywhere. This is College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. Texas softball traveled to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Sooners in a 3-game series this past weekend. Friday's doubleheader opened with a Longhorn loss 9-8. Texas got off to a promising start, but the Sooners wasted no time fighting back to claim the victory. They quickly returned with walks and runs, quickly bringing up OU to 9 runs. The second game of the day led to another Texas loss after OU's Aaron Miller hit a walk-off 2-run home run in the bottom of the 7th. The third game of the series took place Saturday, and junior Kelly Hansel hit a 3-run home run during the top of the 7th, but that was not enough to overtake the Sooners, who swept the Longhorns 5-3. The Longhorns continue conference play against Oklahoma State on Saturday, April 22nd.
Women's tennis hosted West Virginia on Saturday and Iowa State on Sunday at the Weller Indoor Tennis Center. Texas locked up the doubles points and secured 4 straight set singles wins against West Virginia, winning 5-0. All-American senior Brianna Addison played in the top seed for both singles and doubles, coming away victorious in each. On Sunday, though, Addison was out after doubles, putting the team in a sticky situation to close out the singles competition. Freshman Chelsea Crovetti won her singles match 6-2, 6-2, contributing to the Longhorn victory over the Cyclones.
Men's tennis hosted TCU on Saturday at the Weller Indoor Tennis Center. College Press Box's Luke Hendry was there to capture the action.
Senior day for the Texas Longhorn tennis team was a battle with the number 2 ranked TCU Horned Frogs. Both teams came to the match looking to make a mark on conference play. TCU took the early advantage after doubles play, but the battle was far from over. Hoping to make a late charge and knock off arguably the best team in NCAA men's tennis, the Horns needed something special. And fight is exactly what they did, as the Horns managed to square up the overall match 3-3. Merely 1 win away from clinching the victory over TCU, the unthinkable happened, and a very controversial call fell the Horned Frogs' way.
Thought like he didn't call it, so I was like, okay, that's mine, because you have to have a visible and audible call in order for it to be out or to get the point. But then he argued with her, and she sided with him, giving him the point. So instead of going to tiebreak, it was deuce, and then I ultimately lost that point.
TCU's Alex Ribicoff's victory over Harry Scott clinched the match for the Horned Frogs, and they continue their undefeated streak in Big 12 play. Despite the Horns' loss against TCU today and last week against Oklahoma, they still have a run at the Big 12 championship in 2 weeks. Head coach Michael Sinner was very clear that they need to keep the emotions in check and play competitively throughout the postseason.
Well, we're getting later in the season. The emotions are high. You know, there are a lot of stakes, a lot of things at stake. In conference, trying to win a conference or position yourself, or NCAA seeding, the whole thing. So, you know, what I'm looking for right now, I told the guys before we started, I'm really not looking to see how we play today. I want to see now it's about competing and how resilient we can be. And I thought we were really resilient today, and I thought we competed really, really hard.
Texas will face Texas Tech next Friday, and then will take their talents to the Big 12 championship. Reporting from Weller Tennis Center, Luke Hendry, College Press Box.
Sunday at Dornick Hills Golf Club. Junior Gavin Hall shot a 66 Friday and a 68 Saturday to win the whole tournament by 2 strokes. He has not finished outside of the top 20 for the past 6 tournaments in Texas. Sophomore Doug Gim tied for 12th and sophomore Scotty Scheffler tied for 16th. Texas earned its 5th win of the season, 5 strokes in front of the runner-up Baylor. They begin the Big 12 championships in 2 weeks in Trinity, Texas.
The Texas track and field team raced in the rain at the Texas Invitational in Austin this past Saturday. The Longhorns hosted 9 other teams, including 6 top 10 teams, giving the runners a glimpse at what the national championship is going to look like. Texas' Stephen McCarter, Basil Fairs, and Ika Morton took 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in the men's long jump. Junior Mary Beth Hamilton took 3rd in her women's 800, beating her personal record by 2.10 seconds. The men claimed the victory with a final score of 138 points, while the women took 4th with a final score of 84.25 points.
Number 8 ranked Texas women's rowing competed at Clemson this past weekend. The 2-day invite featured 4 of the nation's top 10 teams and 5 of the top 10 finishers from the NCAA 2015 championships. Texas won by 3 seconds in the second varsity 8, later taking the open water win in their varsity 4 heat to beat host Clemson. Texas won all of their 5 races Sunday in the finals. Texas women's rowing hosts number 3 Virginia in 2 weeks on Austin's Lady Bird Lake.
Texas soccer closed out its spring campaign against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. The team traveled to Dugan Stadium in Corpus Christi, and the Longhorns took control of the match, with Alexa Adams scoring in the 31st minute. In the 62nd minute, Jasmine Hart fed the ball to Katie Glenn, who scored, putting Texas ahead 2-0. 6 minutes later, Morgan Murphy headed the ball into the goal, making the score 3-0. And in the final 10 minutes, a cross by Phoenicia Brown across the 6-yard box was tapped in by Hart. The game ended with a 4-0 Longhorn victory.
Texas women's volleyball hosted Rice Friday night for their 2nd spring game in Gregory Gym. Junior Ebony Wanabu led the Horns with 15 kills and finished the night out with 6 service aces and led the team in scoring with a total of 21.5 points. Junior Shiaka Obagu had 11 kills, and with sophomore Mirta Basilvich got a team high of 5 blocks. Sophomore Kat McCoy and freshman Miyaka White each led with 11 digs. Texas looks forward to their last tournament of the spring on April 23rd in Dallas. Coming up next, a sneak peek into this week in Longhorn sports. Stay with us.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's take a look at what's coming up this week in Longhorn sports. Tuesday on April 19th, baseball versus UT Rio Grande Valley at 6 p.m. on the Longhorn Network. And Friday, April 22nd, men's tennis at Texas Tech at 6 p.m. And softball versus Oklahoma State at 6 p.m. And you can catch that on Longhorn Network.
Saturday, April 23rd, we got women's tennis versus Baylor at 1 p.m., baseball at Texas Tech at 2 p.m., and the track and field and cross country versus, actually at LSU, the Alumni Gold, and the volleyball at the Collegiate Showcase.
And on Sunday, April 24th, softball versus Oklahoma State at 12 p.m. and baseball at Texas Tech at 2 p.m.
Well, we actually have a baby Longhorn alert. Former Texas wide receiver and current Arizona Cardinal Jackson Shipley welcomed his firstborn son into the world Saturday morning. Stone Max Shipley was born 7 pounds and 2 ounces to parents Jackson and Blaze Shipley. Can you bleed more burnt orange than having your child on the day of the spring game? Like, come on. That's amazing.
I mean, I feel that's perfectly planned. And I mean, of course, I'm a huge fan of the name Stone, but could this be the beginning of a new Shipley era? You should come back in 2034 to check on baby Stone's progress.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in with us this evening. You can always catch us here on Mondays at 9:30 p.m. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at College Press Box to get the latest updates on all Longhorn sports. Also, for some of the best sports debates on the 40 Acres, be sure to catch our sister show, College Crossfire, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. You can follow them on Twitter as well at College X Fire. From all of us in Master Control, the studio, Emily and myself, thank you for watching the best student sports show on the 40 Acres. Have a great night.